Hari Om. If an alcoholic wants to give up drinking and change his lifestyle, the change happens in two stages or two phases. One at the physical level and the other at the mental level. At the physical level, it is a behavioral change. So the behavior in this example of alcoholic, I'm just taking the example of alcohol, but this but it applies to any behavior. The behavior, if it is to be changed at the physical level, which is the gross part, it needs to change, meaning the alcoholic has to stop drinking. Then the mental phase is where that person learns how this alcohol has been affecting their lives and why they should not do it and what is the thing that motivates them to drink, and then learn an alternate coping strategy. That's at the mental level. Now, the mental level is very subtle, and to change that is a little bit more difficult, in fact a lot more difficult than to change at the gross level, which is the physical level. So, first and foremost, if any behavior has to be changed, the change happens at the physical level. So it may be like at the physical level, it might be just suppressing a certain desire, but it has to be done at that level. And then as you learn to control your behavior, you learn new methods of coping. So that's why the Lord says here that action, as you all know, every action is preceded by a thought. To change the thought is a subtle thing and it's a little bit more difficult than to change the action. Therefore, changing the action is the easier part. And therefore, he describes how all the details, deep analysis of what an action is constituted of, so that you would know all the finer details of action and then it can be changed. So, we saw in the last lecture that for an action to happen, there are 5 requirements. If any one of those 5 requirements is not there, no action is possible. What are these 5 requirements? You need to have a body. To do an action, you need to have a body. 2, you need to have an ego or a doer, a karta within that body who drives that body into action. So a body, an ego, then third one, organs of perception. You need organs of perception. The 5 senses are the ones that we receive the world in. So that's the third one. The fourth one are the 5 organs of action, our response to the world. And the fifth one are the 5 faculties of the senses. The sense of hearing, the sense of seeing, sense of smelling, sense of tasting, and the sense of touching. These faculties, called the devas. These 5 factors are absolutely required for any action. Now, having all these 5 requirements and doing actions, you would see, given the same environment, everybody reacts and acts differently. That is because of the different moods that we are in. As I told you earlier, all of us have these 3 moods, the sattvic, rajasic and the tamasic moods, in different proportion all times. So depending on our particular mood at that particular time, we act in a certain way. So the Lord describes what we do when we are in each one of these moods. So he says that action has all these components, the five characteristic features, and then there is an impulse to action. What propels you into acting? What compels you to act? And when you consider that, the impulse to action, called karma chodana, that is what compels us to act outside. There is this knower, the known, and the knowledge. Or in the practical sense, the experiencer, the experienced, and the experience that we get out of that. The experiencer is me, the experienced is what is out there, and when I interact with the experienced, what results is the experience. Now, what compels me to do from the experiencer point of view is the desire. When I get a desire to do a certain action, that's what compels me to do the action. From the experienced point of view, it is called the temptation. So when I see something that is desirable and I want to get it, that's a temptation that is out there. And experience, what compels me in the experience is my memory of past pleasurable experiences. So these are the three factors that compels me to act. And then there is the basis to action. Even when you have the compulsion to act, there has to be a basis to action called the karma sangraha. What is this basis to action? The karta, meaning the one who does the action, the work, meaning when I am doing an action, there has to be a thought as to what I am trying to accomplish by that action. That is the basis for that action. And thirdly, I need the instruments of action. And what are these instruments of action? Those are the organs of perception, the organs of action, my mind and my intellect. These are the instruments of action. So, based on all that, the summary of all that is that there is every work is constituted of an actor, an action, and the knowledge. And the Lord says all these three come under those three moods, and He describes what happens when we are in each one of those moods. So He takes knowledge first. What is sattvic knowledge? As I said, it's actor, action and knowledge. That constitutes work. Now he is talking about knowledge. Sattvic knowledge is where one has that ability to see the oneness in everything. You see the multiple things that are in this world, and yet we are not able to see the oneness behind most of the time because we are not in the sattvic mood. When we are in the sattvic mood, we would be able to see in and through all these multiplicity, there is that oneness which is the Lord that is manifesting in these different ways. So seeing the oneness, to live awareness of one's life pulsating through every living thing. And what is Rajasic knowledge? Rajasic knowledge is seeing the differences. All sciences that we study are Rajasic knowledge, meaning it sees all the differences. Chemistry analyzes everything and separates everything into elements. Physics the same way. Every science is like that. And the intellect always sees the differences. That is the Rajasic knowledge, looking at everything as different entities. Intellect can see only differences. It needs wisdom to see the oneness. Intellectually, when you see, people say, oh, Christianity is different from Hinduism, Hinduism is different from Buddhism. True. When you are looking at it intellectually, they are different. But it requires wisdom to see the commonality in all that. You see the oneness, the one focus that all these different religions have. That requires wisdom. So Rajasic knowledge doesn't have that. Tamasic knowledge regards one path as the only one. They see one little aspect and they think that is all that is needed. So they have one belief. I believe in this deity, and that is the only God. And everybody else who believes in everything else is evil, because they are not believing in the one thing that I believe in. So they believe in that part only. They are being fanatical. That is tamasic knowledge. Now when it comes to action, now we finished knowledge, now we are talking about action. What is sattvic action? Doing obligatory duties done cheerfully without attachment to the fruits and not motivated by likes and dislikes. We have obligatory duties. Obligatory duties are duties that we owe to ourselves, our immediate family. You broaden your scope to your neighbors, your friends, your county, your state, your country, then the whole world. This is, your duties are there at every level. Those are called obligatory duties that you do, that you have to do because that is required of you. Doing those obligatory duties cheerfully, without attachment. Without attachment meaning without any ulterior motives and without any expectation of the fruits of these actions. So when I do something good, I expect people to appreciate it and compliment me. And when I don't get it, I get disappointed. That means I'm not doing it in the sattvic way. That action is not done in a sattvic manner. So anything that is done selflessly, without attachment, without any expectations of fruits of the action, that's called sattvic. What is rajasic action? Actions done out of desires, performed in a self-centered, delusory attitude of I am the doer, and striving hard, not trusting others, getting exhausted and fearful. So doing anything with desire and only for selfish reasons, that's rajasic action. Example, the scriptures say politicians. They do it not because they want to help the people, but in the process they want to get more power, more self-aggrandizement in so many different ways. These are rajasic actions. Tamasic actions are actions undertaken without regard to consequences, brings disaster and sorrow for everyone. Examples are gambling, drinking and corruption. These are examples of tamasic actions. Then an actor, that's the last of the three that constitutes work, an actor. Who is a sattvic actor? He is one who has no attachment, not egoistic, and endowed with firmness and enthusiasm, unmoved by success or failure. Our Gurudev says the best example of a sattvic actor is a nurse who works in a hospital. That example is taken because the nurse who works in the hospital has no attachment to the patients. It's not like, she is taking care of her own father or brother or son or daughter. Total stranger. So no attachment there. Yet she does what she is required to do. And she is not interested in, or she doesn't take credit if the patient improves, because she is not the one who is prescribing the treatment. The doctor is the one who is prescribing the treatment. So she doesn't take credit when the patient improves. By the same token, if the patient dies, she doesn't feel as if she had done something wrong, because she didn't treat the patient, somebody else was treating the patient. So she doesn't take credit for the improvement, nor does she take any blame for anything wrong that happens. She just does what she has to do. So therefore, a sattvic actor, a typical example of a sattvic actor is the nurse. So given that fact, you can understand what the sattvic actor should be. A rajasic actor is full of desires and passions, ever anxious to get the fruits of actions, ever greedy for more, and desires multiply constantly and never hesitates to cheat or plunder. A rajasic actor is one who is acting on his desires, and in order to get his desires fulfilled, any means is justifiable, even if it is to cheat somebody, undercut somebody. As long as they get the profit, that's all that matters. And they justify it within themselves, rationalize it, because this is what I want, and so, I need to do these things to get it. That is rajasic actor. A tamasic actor has no control over his impulses, does not listen to any logic or reason. He is overindulgent and he is a social parasite. So thus, when you see, when an actor with his knowledge comes to act in this world, work is manifested. This work that is manifested has to be done, if it is to be perpetuated, by two factors, buddhi and fortitude. Buddhi is intelligence, fortitude is dhritti. These two factors, buddhi and dhritti, are necessary. Intelligence and fortitude. What is this intelligence that we are talking about? Or buddhi is understanding. We know plants respond. If you have a plant in here, in a pot, after a while you will see that the plant will be growing towards that side, not towards this way. Why? Because it is attracted by the sunlight. It grows towards the sunlight. The plant responds to moisture. So the plants respond. Animals act, meaning they do whatever that impulses or instincts prompts them to do. So animals act, plants respond, animals act. Man is the only one who can work. Now, what is work? Work is action done with intelligence. Any work, any action done intelligently is called work. So what is this intelligence we are talking about in human behavior? This intelligence, or the buddhi that one should have in working, comes from his ability to discriminate what should be done and what should not be done. Pravritti and nivritti. What should be done and what should not be done. The intellect should be able to differentiate between those two. Karya and akarya. Things that are done and have to be done because it is a thing that is expected of you. That's karya. Akarya are things that are below the dignity of the human being. So this discrimination, The intelligence or the understanding that comes out of this ability to discriminate, that is the understanding that we are talking about. Things to be done, pravritti, and things to be renounced are nivritti. Karya, things to be performed, such as obligatory duties, and akarya, things being below the dignity of humanity. Then fear and fearlessness, the ability to discriminate or distinguish between them. There are things that you should be afraid of. There is a saying, fools jump in where wise fear to tread. Meaning, there are things that you should be afraid of. You should be afraid of doing bad actions. There are things that you should be fearless. When you are doing something right, regardless of the opposition, you should be fearless. Do not be worried about consequences, because in your mind you know this is the right thing to do. Go ahead and do it regardless of any obstacles. That's fearlessness. So fear and fearlessness, this also comes in your consideration of the understanding. One who has the correct understanding of the above is considered sattvic. The understanding that falsely judges what should be done and should not be done due to egoistic misconceptions is considered rajasic. So what is rajasic understanding? They misinterpret things that should be done as things that can be done, and should not be done, they think it should be done. So they misunderstand that and then they do that. That's the rajasic type of understanding. Dharma and adharma, what rises from selfish desires is adharma, means justify end, compromising the values. Dharma and adharma. Adharma is anything that comes out of my desire. If I do something out of my desire, that's adharma. Anything that is done with no selfish desire is dharma. The tamasic understanding is that they don't differentiate between dharma and adharma. The classic example is in Mahabharata. Duryodhana was asked, "Don't you think what you are doing is bad?" He says, "I have the intelligence to know what is right and what is wrong, but I choose to do what I am doing now." He knows what he is doing is not right, but yet he chooses to do the wrong thing. That is tamasic understanding. Buddhi or understanding is intellectual ability with which one can readily judge any situation and receive stimuli. If you don't have the right understanding as to what any situation is, if you are faced with a situation, if you don't have the right understanding and the grasp of what is going on, then you are likely to make the wrong reaction or the wrong response to that. So the right understanding is absolutely necessary. Without this correct judgment, one's response cannot be appropriate. Failures in life and sorrows are all due to absence of the right and efficient understanding. The sattvic buddhi, sattvic understanding never fails. Rajasic buddhi seldom succeeds. Tamasic buddhi never succeeds. So have that in mind when you have this understanding. Now, what is fortitude or dhritti? I said, there are two factors to perpetuate a work successfully. One is the understanding. You need to have the right understanding. Second is the fortitude. When you are working, there has to be a certain subtle push behind you, within yourself, that keeps you going. That's called fortitude. Is that power in ourselves by which we consistently see the picture of our goal. So we have a certain goal in mind and we act. and halfway through there are some obstacles. The mind would say, oh, there's no point in continuing because there are too many obstacles. But if you have the fortitude, it will be able to overcome that obstacle and keep going, because you have the vision of your goal in mind at all times. The necessary consistency of purpose to pursue the path in spite of obstacles, giving us courage to face them heroically. A sattvic person not only has control over his senses, he is fully aware not to let his mind slip back. Now there are 4 types of activities that we indulge in our life. They have analyzed it and said there are 4 activities that we do. Number 1, dharma. Dharma is where you follow the values of life described in chapter 13, the 36 values of life, and 20 values of life in chapter 12. You follow these values of life in your life. And when you follow these values of life, your mind becomes calmer and you are more sattvic. So that's the first thing to do in activities in our life, dharma. Second is artha. Artha is acquiring wealth. After having the right values in life, you go out into the world and acquire wealth. You work and make money and invest it and do all that based on your right values. So you will never do, acquire wealth in the wrong way. You will always do it because you always have the good values in your mind. So your actions and the way you go about acquiring it would also be the right way. So dharma, artha, and then comes kama. Then using this wealth, you satisfy your desires. Now naturally, the desires that you will have because of the values that you have cultivated would be noble desires, good desires. So using the money that you have made or the wealth that you have made, you satisfy your desires, which are good desires, karma. And the last one is moksha. So having done that, having made the money and then satisfied your desires, then your mind is ready for moksha, meaning contemplation, meditation. Now these are the 4 activities or 4 things that we indulge in our life. A sattvic person follows this order faithfully. He follows this faith. The sattvic person does dharma, artha, kama, and moksha faithfully. A rajasic person has some values, but he makes the artha part, he makes money for his own selfish reasons. Even the dharma that he had learned was half-hearted. So he makes money for selfish reasons and for personal gains. And naturally, his desires also are going to be selfish desires for his own personal benefit. And the Lord doesn't talk about moksha because in a rajasic person, he has no concerns about moksha. So he won't even think about contemplation and meditation and so on. For him, it is just artha and kama. For a tamasic person, steadiness with which he does not give up his fanciful things. Now, even a criminal has fortitude, meaning he is consistent in his thinking and he is motivated, but it's in the wrong direction. So that's what the tamasic fortitude, steadiness with which he does not give up his fanciful thinking and his imaginations. And he has many fears of delusional nature. Example, fear of dying. For this kind of a person, grief, depression and arrogance are channels through which he dissipates his energy. Grief is regarding his past, depression is regarding his present, and regarding his future, he has arrogance, lusty conceit with which he does immoral acts. Now, when all these things are concerned, whether it's a sattvic person or a rajasic person, a criminal or a spiritual person, why are they acting? Why are we working in this world? Why are we doing anything? The bottom line for everyone is pursuit of happiness. We all do things for happiness. We want to get married for happiness. You get divorced for happiness. You want some money for happiness. Because money itself does not give you happiness. With the money you want to buy things that would make you happy. So everything is done for happiness. The criminal does his crime because it gives him happiness. He wants to eliminate his enemy because it gives him happiness. Now this happiness, since it is the same goal that everybody is working towards, the Lord says even that comes under 3 categories. And he will discuss that at the next talk. Thank you.